So as we approach the impending vote in the House to impeach the president, I ran across some articles. This particular one comes to us from the NOQ report, and it says why the president's letter is the most important historical document of our lifetimes. If you don't know, President Trump sent a letter to Nancy Pelosi giving his reasons why he feels this would be a bad idea. And I haven't read this article all the way through yet, but I want to do it right here. And I have some other articles I want to point to. But I want to talk about all of this and why it's so important and why this could be, in essence, a pivotal point in our history. And why I think that this civil war that people are talking about, the second civil war, which I don't feel is going to be a violent civil war. It's going to be a civil war dealing with the hearts and minds of people, because we have been so polarized over the past few years. And it reminds me, from what I read in history of the antebellum South, how both sides didn't really understand each other. And I think we've gotten to that point right now. And so I'm going to talk about this and several articles about poll numbers and how Trump is doing really, really well in key battleground states and across the country, and how this impeachment is ripping this country apart. And we're going to start right now. Hi, my name is Kyle, and welcome to my channel where we take culture, TV, and movies and we filter it right. If this is your first time here, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button and that bell icon so you don't miss any future content. And like I said in my intro, this is an article that I want to go through really quickly here. It is why the president's letter is the most important historical document of our lifetimes. So let's check this thing out. It says here, American history was made today, but thanks to the unhinged anti-Trump puppets of Democrats in newsrooms across the nation, most people are missing out on it. The letter that President Trump personally wrote to the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, is the most honest and open interpretation of this 3-year impeachment process on record. It's a document that will be referenced by historians of the future, and how it's viewed will depend on how America moves forward from here. Now, I'm not trying to compare this to the Gettysburg Address, but if we are going to draw analogies to the Gettysburg Address and this, you have to take into consideration the analogy that this is a second civil war. And I would contest that this country is just as polarized as it was back then. Now, no one saw an impending war coming in, and nor do I see a war like what happened then. I mean, there was not an issue on there that's strictly divided by lines. This is by ideology, okay? And so the country is divided. And so if this letter is as this author says, then we can maybe look back on this 20, 30 years from now as being pivotal based on what happens from history. The Gettysburg Address was a misnomer. It was a second thought. No one thought anything about it. President Lincoln gave his address, so quickly that they didn't have a chance to take a picture of it. By the time they did it, it was exposed and it's not a good quality picture. But prior to that, there was a 3-hour speech going over the entire battle and so forth. And so that was the big deal. Lincoln's address was not even thought about until a little bit later. And so food for thought. And so this guy goes on to say, he says, I've written countless articles opposing actions and policies over the last 3 years and didn't sit well with my conservative sensibilities. He goes on to say, President Trump's letter to Speaker Pelosi is one of the most important documents written by a president in our nation's history. The scoffers just checked when they read it. That's true. When history looks back on this time of partisan strife and the nation's transitioning towards a post-truth status quo, this letter will be seen as either a last-ditch effort to stop onrushing blight of cultural Marxism, or will be seen as the rallying cry to make America not only support its duly elected president, but also to embrace the sanity that seems to be slipping away from our society. Now, check this article out. It goes into a lot of different things here, but I'm going to go into the actual key points of the letter. Here, there's a link here from The Hill. It says, here are the top 10 zingers in Trump's historic letter to Pelosi. And let's just read through them, all right? I'm going to keep this video as short as possible. All right, so let's go to the first one. All right. This first point is, it says here that both Trump and Pelosi this feud has been deeply personal. Never before has the President of the United States sent out such a letter to the Speaker of the House, and we may never see a letter again like this again. The following are 10 of the key highlights from the letter. The first one is 1. The impeachment represents an unprecedented and unconstitutional abuse of power by Democrat lawmakers, unequaled in nearly 2.5 centuries of American legislative history. 2. By proceeding with your invalid impeachment, you are violating your oaths of office. You are breaking your allegiance to the Constitution, and you are declaring open war on American democracy. 3. Even worse than offending the Founding Fathers, you are offending Americans of faith by continually saying you pray for the president when you know this statement is not true, unless it was meant to be a negative sense. 4. You know full well that Vice President Biden used his office and $1 billion of U.S. aid to coerce Ukraine into firing the prosecutor who was digging into the company paying his son millions of dollars. We did a video on this. Now you are, number 5, now you are trying to impeach me by falsely accusing me of doing what Joe Biden has admitted he actually did. 6, you have developed a full-fledged case of what many in the media call Trump derangement syndrome, and sadly, you will never get over it. 7, you view democracy as your enemy. 8, you are the ones interfering in America's elections. You are the ones subverting America's democracy. 9, more due process was afforded to those accused in the Salem witch trials. 10, that's true actually. Any member of Congress who votes in support of impeachment against every shred of truth, fact, evidence, and legal principle is showing how deeply they revile the voters and how truly they detest America's constitutional order. Wow. I'll leave a link to this article as well. And that's a mouthful, and it speaks for itself. And I think when I first heard that he was going to do this letter, I wasn't sure about that. But I like what he did this. He put it on record. And so history will see this forever. And so looking back on it, those are the facts. And let it go where it may. So no matter what people will say in terms of what comes out of this, it will really, really speak volumes to how it's handled going forward. And so with that in mind, I will go over a couple things here really quickly. Is that Trump's approval rating just came out today. This is from Gallup. Trump approval up 6 points since launch of impeachment inquiry. Up 6 points. And lastly, an unbiased media yesterday had this, where basically Trump pulls ahead in over the candidates, the main candidates in the Democrat presidential nominee process. And right now he's up 44-41 over Biden, 44-39 over Sanders, 45-37 over Warren, 43-34 over Bloomberg, 43-33 over Buttigieg. And what we're seeing here across the board is that this administration, this president, has put up with a lot of stuff, okay? And I think this letter that he put out, we'll see how it turns out in terms of its historical significance. But based on what I've read so far and the points that I just read right now, it's a zinger. It's like just like this article said here before, that on the Hill, it's a zinger that it really shoots a shot over the bow of the Democrats and puts them on record and puts them on notice of what they can expect to happen if they continue this process. And so if you like what you see on this channel, where we take culture, TV, and movies, and recently politics, and filter it right, please click like and subscribe and that bell icon, and also please share with your friends. And as always, please check out some content that I have right